If you've been doing web development for a while, you're probably familiar with the Bootstrap library, which was originally from Twitter. And Bootstrap comes with a lot of things. And one of the nice things it comes with is a huge number of glyph icons that you can use to add semantic value to your user experience. You got icons for checkboxes and X's and music notes and search and euro symbols and pluses and minuses and lots of other things. And the traditional way you would use one of these is you would create an element, usually a span or a div, and you would give it the appropriate CSS for whatever one you want. And the icon would show up, which is really nice. The problem is, if it goes wrong, there's no good way to catch it, because the problem is, if you misspell your CSS name, instead of getting a broken image, you're just going to get no image. So you won't even get an error message. It just, nothing happens. It just looks wrong. And that makes for a very frustrating debug environment, especially if the error happened because, you were editing an existing file and I don't know, you hit a key where you weren't expecting and you didn't notice it. It could happen, it has happened. And, the frustrating thing is, in general, it won't cause any tests to fail or anything like that. It just will suddenly cause your user experience to look wrong. That's really a frustrating experience because there's no good automated way in JavaScript to catch that kind of error. It's not actually an error. It's just you have a CSS class that's being called that doesn't exist. That's not good. So in Elm, if you look at the elm-exts package, that's elm-exts, there's a library there, or a module there, called exts.html.bootstrap.glyphicons. Yeah, that's a mouthful. And you'll find that there's a type in that called glyph icons, and it actually defines a type for every icon you might want to display. And then there's a function which will turn that into an HTML element. So the advantage of this is if you type glyph icons space heart, for example, you get the heart icon. If you got it wrong, if you misspelled it, for example, maybe you put 2 T's in heart because it was late at night and you weren't typing carefully, instead of simply not showing up at runtime, now you get a type error. So instead of having an invisible runtime error, now you have a very visible compile time error, and you catch it right away. There's no, oh, what just happened here scenario, and everything looks great. So it's another class of errors that would be a very difficult to track down CSS error at runtime in JavaScript that in Elm you can turn into a type check compile error. So your compiler then has your back and finds your problems for you. Huge numbers of error messages just go away. Or better yet, actually don't just go away. Huge number of error messages happen and tell you that something is wrong versus the JavaScript way where nothing happens and tells you you're wrong, and suddenly you find out at runtime when something doesn't look right. And especially if your icon is not on the front page of your app, but maybe buried in a dialog somewhere, you might not even notice it's gone until way later. So this is really nice because it takes one more class of thing that can go wrong and make sure it doesn't. And that's a really nice feature in Elm, and that's sort of the Elm way, is make sure things don't go wrong by making them go wrong at the compiler and not at runtime.